Hey, everybody. Welcome to Space Force. I'm your host, Jason Tondro.
I'm fine.
And I'm Aid Smith.
And we're here to go over the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. And this is episode 3.4. Forget Me Not. Very, very briefly, we go to the Trill homeworld. I don't know if we've ever done this before. It looks new to me. And I didn't watch as much DS9 as a lot of people out there, so a lot of the stuff, like I don't know as much about the Trill as a lot of as my distinguished co-hosts do. But we go to the Trill homeworld and we try and solve Tal's problem, where Tal is a symbiote in a human host and can't remember everything. And in the process, we get this long series of extended flashbacks in which we learn about Tal's previous host. Is that Gray Tal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gray Tal, who is critically injured in a meteorite collision. And at the last second, I know we're going to get to the meteorite collision. You both have a lot to say about the meteorite collision. And as a result, the symbiote has to be transferred to a human host kind of at the last second. And meanwhile, so we learn all that, and it seems to resolve itself. Like Tal seems to, they reunite all of their previous memories and all their previous identities, and they kind of integrate themselves. And Tal stays with the Discovery. Meanwhile, there's a B plot in which everybody in the crew is like on edge and losing it after the post-traumatic stress of everything they've been through. And Saru decides to have all of his bridge crew up to his cabin for dinner, which goes about as poorly as could possibly be hoped for. But it all kind of ends up well at the end, and we have the whole crew sort of watching Buster Keaton silent movies by the end, and apparently, slowly getting better. So it was a generally positive episode. It was like an uplifting episode, although they went through a lot of trial and struggles to get there. Aid, what did you think?
It felt like a classic Trek episode.
Yeah, really.
This felt like a DS9 episode. This could have been. There's Trill. There's a B plot. There's an A plot. The A plot has got lots of metaphysical stuff going on, and then the B plot is like. But yeah, and there wasn't technically an alien to destroy or solve, or it was more character driven.
Yeah.
There are still some things that I would have liked to have seen done differently.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a good episode. It's probably one of the best this season, I think, personally.
Yeah.
Just because it felt like classic Trek. You could see if it was Dax and somebody else like Bashir in that pool, you could see the plot working. Or Esri Dax when she took over, you could see that being a plot. So it's it fundamentally works in that way. Now, like I said before, there are some intricacies that are definitely slightly off.
Yeah,
we're pretty good.
Jim?
Generally, I liked it, but I do have some reservations. I watched it initially, and it impacted me in a very emotional way.
Yeah.
So I waited a couple of days to rewatch it for the podcast so I can look at it more critically. And I do have some qualms with the episode.
Yeah.
That we'll get to and we'll unpack in a little bit.
Sure. Well, I agree with you, Ada. It felt like the episode, like the show had kind of hit its stride with this episode. Like it felt like classic Trek. I totally agree. And the weird caves and the pools and like and there was a couple of little pew pew action and I felt like it kind of hit everything I wanted it to hit. So I was pretty happy with it overall. But all right, so let's get to some of those specifics. So we open with a doctor's log. We were just talking about captain's logs not that long ago and how we miss them. What do you guys think, Jim? Doctor's log?
I'm all for it. Wilson Cruz just wants to talk to us for 60 minutes, I'll sign up for that subscription service.
You would just watch Wilson Cruz just drink coffee for an hour, right?
You know what? I would, as I drink my coffee.
Yeah. Abe, Dr.
Yeah, this is a sad thing, because when you used to switch on either Next Generation or mostly a DS9 episode, if there was a secondary character or a part that did the log, you knew that was their A story. So when this guy came up to do his log, is it going to be actually going to focus on the Doctor? Nah, kind of, but not quite as much as you would like to have seen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. I felt like the fact that Burnham is the star of the show was a bit too heavy-handed for me in this episode. Like when the Doctor starts off talking, I thought, oh, okay, we're going to get like a Doctor episode. And I was totally in for that. And then like Doctor's like, I think you should escort her down. And I'm like, what? So, yeah.
It's such a shame, because again, the character did do stuff on the ship, so we did see more interaction with the crew from his perspective. We saw he spoke a lot more in this episode than he probably has in the last 3. Right. But it would have been nice for him to be the one doing something on Trill. Burnham could have been there as well to do something else. They didn't have to just send 2 of them. There was no reason to send 2 people down. They could have sent a contingent of 4. They could have sent 3 down, whatever. Also puzzling as well, I'm not quite sure why they used a shuttle rather than transport, because I was expecting that to pay off at some point in time, but it didn't. So I don't know what was going on there. But yes, it's a shame he didn't get utilised to be. This could have been his episode.
Now, to be fair, he was fairly important in the B plot.
Yeah.
Right? So he did have something going on. He didn't go down to the planet, but he was kind of the instigator for the whole B plot, where he's the one that comes to Saru and says, listen, like the crew is really messed up. And they're acting like they're fine, but they're not fine, as Jim has noted, right? Like we are not fine. So anyway, so he got something, but yeah, it wasn't as much as we would like.
I think the decision to have Burnham go down the planet is they're working on the macro plot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're building a bridge with her and another character who's going to want to change what happened. Like this is still I'm still thinking time travel is going to be the resolution, guys.
I think you're wrong. I really do. For those of you that are listening, like I'm in a 1 versus 2 battle here. Aid and Jim are both convinced that the end of season 3 will be Burnham going back in time and changing the timeline and preventing the burn. And I don't think they'll do that. I think that would be too much of a cop out, and it would betray the trust of the audience who has been watching this whole season to tell them, well, not everything you've been watching doesn't matter. We're going to rewrite all of it. I don't think they do. I still believe that they're here at the beginning of season 3 where they have wanted to be for 2 seasons. And if you're gonna send the characters into the far future to a new time period, you don't need to time travel to fix everything, because you can write it the way you want to write it right the first time. But anyway, Jim, do you want to explain? Go on with your talking about, like how did they set up the time travel, the theoretical time travel fix?
So there was a lot of little hints that the show was leaving behind. Last episode, it was Book saying how much he hated the uniform. Right? They were really heavy-handed. Like that shows up 3 times. It shows up in the initial, I don't want to do this. It shows up on the reminder, like he can't quite fit in the uniform. And then it shows up at the end where he's like, I have a rash. So
what do you think that means?
That means when they reboot time, Book's not going to be with them. Okay. And Book's going to show up in a Starfleet uniform, and he's not going to have any interest in Michael because he's going to be a by-the-book Starfleet officer. That's the pathos. Okay. That's the pathos of Burnham's decision. Like, she can save the universe again and do it the way she wants to, but she won't have the romantic interest anymore. Like, he'll be drastically different.
I mean, the simpler explanation is that his complaining about the uniform is a metaphor for his rejection of all authority. Mm-hmm. Right. But you're like, no.
I'm 3-dimensional chess. And also with this episode, we'll introduce to Starfleet's transgendered character.
Yeah.
Played by a transgendered actor.
Right.
In Ian Alexander. And the character's already dead.
Yeah.
They're already buried by the time we pick up the story. We meet them in flashback. And yes, there was this ghosting at the very end of the episode where he is still with her. But I don't see how you introduce Star Trek's first transgendered character and just have them be dead. Like, that goes right into the bury the gays stereotype, and I just can't conceive of a universe where we write that story.
But it's not a good look, that's for sure. To literally kill him off on day one. I mean, theoretically, they are going to stick around, theoretically.
Yeah.
But it's still not the best of ideas to say, oh, look, they're dead now. They lasted 20 minutes.
Now, yes, he's dead. However, by the end of the episode, they're all integrated, and it's not a sad thing. Like, he's helping her learn how to play the cello, right?
It is a sad thing, though. It is a sad thing because she goes, how can you be here? How can you do this? No Trill has ever had access to have past conversations with previous hosts. They remember their lives the way we recall a memory. Like, I'm going to think about Tuesday.
Exactly.
They think about Tuesday.
Yeah.
They don't have a conversation with Tuesday. And Tuesday is personified in like a past self of me showing up in the room going, man, did that day suck. Like, this is a drastically different thing to the point where she's like, how can you be here? Because she acknowledges that none of the other Trill hosts are in the room.
Right.
How are you different? And she goes, I don't. He goes, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they just move on with the ghost sequence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because we've seen in DS9, correct me if I'm wrong, the episode where Dax sees interacts with us previous hosts, that they're projected onto other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Yes.
Yeah,
So
those like a once in a several year event.
This special ceremony event thing, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. So this is something completely different, and again, it's you're right. You're not. I can't remember her name. I've got a name now.
There was Adira, and she's the human host, and then there was Gray, who was the previous host.
So she's having conversations with her past self, but it's a conversation. It's not a memory thing. Yeah. So, but again, I really hope we don't go to the imaginary friend room where everything's like, don't say anything about them because they'll be confused, because that's going to get annoying quick if they do that.
What kind of reminds me of is number 6 from Battlestar Galactica, right?
True.
Wasn't 6 like hanging around as Baltar's imaginary friend for like almost like entire seasons?
Yep. And also, Discovery's done the imaginary friend.
Exactly.
They've done the alien influence that was part of another character until that plot got resolved. Like, we've already been in this well. That's one of the reservations I have is I'm all for inclusivity. I want to take these metaphors that people have already adopted. Like, this is Star Trek reacting to fandom. This is not fandom reacting to Trek.
Explain what you mean.
Well, the Trill came out, and it came out in a very conservative era of Trek in terms of Rick Berman's in charge, very publicly can't have a gay story. Like, David Gerrold was denied writing his TNG AIDS metaphor because they didn't want to acknowledge homosexuality. Right. So they come up with this character in Jadzia who's referred to affectionately and lovingly by Benjamin Sisko as old man.
Yeah.
And it's this banter, and they have a wonderfully constructed relationship that is predicated on their past friendship. And, like, the transgender community saw that and was like, oh, Star Trek is all about allegory and metaphor, and we're going to take it. But Trek never itself, and like, this is the first time Trek is taking the subtext and making it text. I remember a direct line of like communication.
I remember the scene when she meets the Klingon guy, right? And he's like, Curzon, my old friend. And she's like, I'm Jadzia now. And he says, Jadzia, my old friend. Like,
he doesn't care. He's just happy to get his friend back.
Be like the Klingon, yeah. And I saw what you're talking about on Star Trek Online. Mm-hmm. Star Trek Online, the role-playing community embraced the Trill as a way to play transgender characters and to get that to step into those shoes. A little thing about Star Trek Online, if you wanted to play a joined Trill character, it was like a buy-on that you had to buy when you first bought the game. It was like an exclusive if you bought the game from a particular place or bought like a year subscription or whatever. And so later they made it available to everybody. But for a while, it was a very exclusive thing. And you could tell that people that were role players, that was all they cared about. Like they would spend as much money as they had to be able to play a joined Trill because that's the transgender thing that they wanted to explore. And so what you're saying is that fan claim on the Trill is now come full circle and is now being shown in the TV show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing, I mean, again, this could be my complete misinterpretation of the episode.
Yeah.
I'm not offering any particularly great insight because I know people that are transgender, I know people that are gay, straight, whatever. But my interpretation of this is almost the entire episode is almost like an allegory for discovering oneself.
Yeah.
So the idea, like you are being true to yourself, and that's that kind of ties in there. I would say. I mean, it's that just seems to be, and again, and this is why it's quite interesting as well, is because we have a transgender actor, we have a non-binary actor, but their characters as such have not identified themselves as that. People are making that assumption because obviously they're played by those actors.
Well, not only that, the showrunners and the actors themselves are making these claims.
But I
heard this.
They haven't yet. But I don't walk up to someone and say, "Hi, I'm Jim. I'm male."
Yeah, I know. This is what's interesting. Exactly.
How is the show going to handle it moving? That's why it's a reservation and not a dislike.
Yeah,
because I have a reservation about this. I don't know where it's going to go. Sorry, Ada,
yeah,
keep cutting you off.
That's fine. I say the media have run with that as their thing, and they always mention, when I've seen the headlines, it's like transgender character. So they haven't mentioned that yet. They've just said this person is playing a character, which again, not being funny, they're actors. They're supposed to be able to play people that are always not stereotypical themselves, because that's what acting's about. So the idea, I mean, we've already seen that. Again, I can't remember their name. It's Blue, isn't it?
The actor who plays Idera is Blue Del Borio.
That's right, and they're obviously referred to this as she, which we made it when we spoke to the last episode. We said, "Oh, okay, we thought this was going to be our first non-binary Trek character, but at this point in time, they're not." Now, whether or not that's going to show up later on,
I actually expect.
I don't know, but again, as actors, it's good to see them on screen.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see where it goes with it. But like you say, the worst thing about it is we have them appeared on screen and then one of them dies within the first 20 minutes of the show. That is not a good look. Whatever they always do it. I don't know why they do it.
Go ahead, Jason.
I actually expect Troll's pronouns to change next episode. Troll has been through this reintegration process. They've opened the box, right? Like, you know, you got to open the box. You got to look at the box. Like, okay, Troll has now looked in the box, and Troll has integrated what was in the box with Troll. And so I expect that, and I don't know if they'll do it on screen or not, but there's going to be a conversation where Troll says, "I'm a they now," and that's my preferred pronoun, and that
would make sense.
And that's what I think they're going to call. That's the pronoun I think they'll use from now on, starting next episode. But we'll find out on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of doing it as well as representation. But again, the thing that does annoy me a little bit about that is doing that way.
Yeah,
is they're saying we have to the first non-binary character we have to have on here has to be an alien, and therefore we can explain it by alienness, not just everyday stuff that real world people go through. It's alien stuff, and thinking, well, that's not good either, really, is it?
That's a metaphor. But Jim, go ahead. You agree?
That is also one of my concerns.
Yeah.
So it really depends on how they approach the next few episodes with Adira.
Yeah.
If they approach it in such a way where the symbiote helps her realize something that was always a part of her that she wasn't able to integrate, that is a different narrative than I'm suddenly claiming ownership of these 9 other lives and now my preferred pronoun is they. Because I feel like the secondary one, the one I just mentioned, where she's like, oh, I'm all these people, so therefore give me they and them. I feel that is othering in a way that focuses just on the alien as opposed to the external presence of Tal being like, hey, you know what? You have this thing going on and you may not even be aware of it. And I'm going to help you through Gray or through any of the other hosts. And I'm going to help you fully integrate yourself. I don't think her character arc is quite done yet.
Yeah.
And it really depends on how the showrunners want to sort of flesh out the metaphor.
I think what I'm hearing is we're afraid of the aliens made me gay plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Because Star Trek, unfortunately, has a history of that. Because Jadzia was only gay in that one episode,
right?
Because of the past host being the symbiote being inside of a woman.
Yeah.
And even though the show made jokes that she was very liberated and very much, sort of kind of a pansexual type of person.
Yeah.
We never went back to that well outside of Dr. Khan.
Right.
So I'm a little worried it's going to be like this, the alienness, it's the otheringness of sort of gender identity.
Well, so we've been talking about the Trill a lot. So let's stick with the A plot for a while.
Okay.
And so we go to the Trill homeworld. Of course, it's too good. It's too it's too rosy of a reception. As soon as they show up and the Trill are like, oh, we're so glad to see you. Like, this is amazing. We can't wait to meet you. Everybody in the audience is like, okay, this cannot last, right? And what do we think of the Trill homeworld, of the whole pool sequence? What is this business about the abomination? And Jim, you've got a very cryptic note here. What is the necessary lie?
Okay, so crash course in Trill society. Trill in Deep Space Nine is what Vulcan is in TOS, right? You have a representative, and we get to tell stories about ourselves through the metaphor of this representative.
Yeah.
Okay? So we got to visit like a mock time. We got to visit the home planet of the Vulcans. In the episode Equilibrium, we visit the home planet of the Trill.
Oh, so we've been there before.
We've been there before.
Okay.
And in the episode, the very end of it, though, like something's medically wrong with Jadzia, so Cisco and Bashir and Dax go to the Trill homeworld. They go to the pools. Like, this is all like giant, CBS has $1 million per episode upgrade of the Planet Hell set they used to use for all of their underground cave locations that they just filled in with mud waddle.
Have we seen these pools before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought they were new. Okay, all right.
And the necessary lie that all characters uncover is that Trill society was predicated that only the elite, only like the 1%ers got a symbiote.
Yeah. Because
they were the only ones biologically capable of handling it. When in truth, half the population of the Trill, the human Trill, can carry a symbiote with no problems. And so their society has constructed this lie in part so that there was not a mass panic for people trying to, claim up symbiotes that wouldn't be good for them, but also so that though people can continually striving for this ideal so that they'll always sort of trying to perfect themselves.
So only the 1% can get a symbiote. So we want everybody to try to be in the 1%.
Yes, but it's not a capitalistic thing. Like, it's just 1% of the population that they allow to be joined, and everyone's striving to be the best version of themselves to get into that club.
I'm not sure I buy the lie. This seems pretty shady to me.
Well, it came out, but only 4 people knew.
Okay.
And it's just unfortunate that the lie continued.
Yeah. So they still believe it in the future, and they shouldn't.
Directly, yeah.
Yeah.
because they say all the compatible hosts died in the bone. Like a great many of the compatible hosts died in the bone. It wasn't that the symbiotes died, because we see plenty of symbiotes in the pools, and every time you see a little spark of light, that's one symbiote communicating with another one. So there's always at least two people talking when there's just a little flash of light.
Yeah.
Because that's established in the DS9 episode.
Okay.
So the reason why Adira can solve their problem is that they'll cut off from their history.
Yeah.
And they need another viable host solution.
Yeah.
And that's where the human Adira comes into play.
Yeah.
But then it also sort of feels like that gets to my decimation complaint.
All right. Do you want to give that now, or we let
talk?
Yeah. This is the problem. Again, as I've mentioned before, we've seen several homeworlds now. We've had 5 people lined up, and that's the population. We now have 9 people lined up on Trill homeworlds, so they're overpopulated.
Yeah.
And nicely enough, they dress in 2 different colours so we can tell which one are the goodies and which one are the baddies. Red and yellow.
This is part of what makes it feel like such a classic Star Trek episode.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're a yellow robe band. You must be bad.
Yeah, yellow robes are like, the yellow robe people are bad. The red robe people are good. There's like 7 people that I only have to memorize their faces. Like, yeah. Look, we're watching this episode.
It's like a mock time. Like those like it literally is a mock time, because at one point they're like, you are the leader lady of all the respect. Like when T'Pau gets carried in into the meeting, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that we theoretically we have, I mean, they say they lost a lot of Trill hosts in the burn. Now theoretically that means they must have been near dilithium, so it means they're on starships. But there must be Trill hosts on the homeworld that are still there, but no one seems to kind of fess up to say, well, I'm a host. None of them 9 or the 7 we see originally don't say they're hosts. They don't pronounce themselves with the naming thing that they did later on. They ask what the names are, but they don't produce their own names. So you're telling me that all the hosts managed to die at the same time? It just seems a bit again. You know, we were a bit bewildered by the idea that you can kill off so many members of the Federation by dilithium problems all happening at the same time, but also we can kill all the hosts off at the same time as well. Odd.
Decimation, Jim?
Right.
I'm an editor. This is a classic editor nitpick. Vent yourself.
This is, and it's because I literally just wrote an article for you that used the word decimation, and I was trying to use it properly, right?
Okay.
So decimation means it comes from a Roman punishment where you would take a legion of men who failed you, and you would kill 1 in every 10.
Yes.
So it's literally 10% is just
10%.
Gone.
Yeah.
And now the Trill are using decimation in the Marvel Comics mutant sense, where it's like decimation happened. The mutant population is 198. I'm like, no, that's not what decimation means. Yeah. Like, you can have a near extinction event, and that's what they could be talking about. But using the word decimation for me, I'm like, 10% of your people died. That's a lot.
Yeah, but he actually
that's not to the point of shouting abomination to people, being desperate, or going to cut a symbiote out of a human body because you don't like the outcome of the acceptance. Yeah, like that seemed. I know that they were trying to say that it's more than just 10%, but my brain has a definition memorized, and the entire time they mentioned it 3 times. I'm like, nope. Like I had my red pen.
I was not tracking the uses of decimation. So, other thoughts on the Trill homeworld that we've missed while we're here on that? How about the flashback sequence? We should talk about that. Aid?
Okay, so before anything else, the pools.
Yeah, the pool.
They're for something really, really important. They're really, really laxly security guarded, aren't they? I mean, the idea is like, and they happen to be just over there. That's lucky as well. Got a whole planet, and all the Trills are just over there, and they're all swimming around, and no one's looking after them. They're our future. We need to look after these things. They're the future of our race. Oh no, they're just popping over there. We're fine. I mean, I mean, if you wanted Burns to shoot somebody, shoot a security guard at the pools. At least make it worthwhile to shoot somebody. But the idea of random people, it's like, oh no.
Like they didn't even need to show a
there you go.
phasables. You could have just showed the inside of a door and like a flash of light, and then they run in. Like you don't even need to like spend an FFX budget on that. Like it's just flash of light, boom, they'll end. Yeah.
But even the idea that Burnham, because I swear Burnham mentions the pools before the other guy, the actual Trill guy, shows up. It's like, what were you going to do when you got there? You have no knowledge of the Trill whatsoever. What were you going to do? Just kind of just throw her in and hope?
She knows about the pools because they mentioned them in front of her when they first arrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no knowledge of any process.
Guardian Z in the red robe, he names drops the pools. Like, we can take it to the pools, that'll help all. And that's when they start mentioning throwing around the word abomination on the yellow side.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the flashback. So Adira and Burnham end up in did they do the same flashback kind of sequence, like going down into the pool in the old episode?
She goes in. Jadzia Dax goes into the pool because she has to reconcile, because she has this past life that she doesn't know about. Those are Kilo Dax.
That's right, Kilo Dax. Yes.
Yeah, there was repressed memories. There was a Kilo Dax at one point, and he's later played by Avery Brooks during that ceremony that Abe mentioned. And they just lock his ass up. They just immediately throw him into the brig, and it's great. And he gets to ham it up. Like, he's total, like, Avery Brooks unhinged. It's a great episode. So she has repressed memories. She goes into the pool. The idea of it becoming I am swallowed by the waddle. I am now in a metaphysical space that is a blue screen with a whole bunch of video game lights. That's new.
Okay.
Like, in the episode, she goes down, they go back to Bashir and Cisco, and they have an argument with they'll Trill handle, and then she's brought up. Like, it's done very off camera. It's not done literally as it is in this episode, where Burnham can jump in and jump into the mindscape.
Yeah, and we have her like connecting with her memories, kind of slowly integrating.
Yeah, and this is why this niggles me. Again, the idea. First of all, this is the Cybok approach to telepathy. So everyone can see what's going on. It's all good. So because obviously we need to shout at the TV so everyone can see what's going on. So we have to throw Burnham in there to get a second person's view of it. Again, if this was a DS9 episode, Jadzia Dax would probably be in that pool on her own because she could probably handled doing it on her own. But we have to have Burnham in there because Burnham has to be in every scene going.
Yeah.
But the idea that the Trill go, abomination, chuck the human in there, she'll solve the problems for us. You go, well, why don't you jump in there? You should know more about this than anybody.
Sure.
But you say, she'll be fine. Just seems a bit weird.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, you're right. It does really remind me of the whole Cybok sequence.
I would have preferred that.
Okay.
And not just as the Star Trek V guy.
Yeah.
My problem with the sequence, the way it's presented, I don't have any problem with the content. Content is fine. I have no issues with it. I have a problem with the execution because it's so far removed from it. Like in the Cybok scene we're talking about, it's done sort of like a stage play where the camera turns and you have, instead of this wall of being a bulkhead, it's now a cityscape and the lighting is different.
Yeah.
But you're still in the same physical space. Like with this, we go into a CGI Tron-like black green screen background that has none of the visual cues. I don't know where they all physically of each other. Are they drowning? Are they on the surface of the water? Are they in another dimension? Like, once you remove it, I'm lost.
They even mention that she goes missing in the pool, and you go, "What? How could you be missing? What's down that? Is it like say, is it a dimensional rift or something? What's going on there? Yeah. It just that doesn't make any sense. And again, we've seen like say we've seen this thing of the idea you can project the past lives onto other people. That would have been quite cool with the Discovery crew filling in for that. That would have at least been interesting as well.
Yeah.
So it's. I can understand why they did it in that respect, but again, the other thing obviously being is that she was very reluctant to experience the past life stuff, although that was fundamentally why she went to True in the first place. Right. It seems like, well, we come all this way and you're going to just, oh, no, I don't want this anymore. Think, oh, okay, that's kind of annoying. It's like, yeah, push forward. But,
well, you know. I can understand that. I can even forgive that because I've gone to therapy knowing I need help on an issue. And it's like, no, I don't want to talk about my dad today. Haven't we done that?
Yeah.
Haven't we beaten that horse?
Even though you know that's why you've come.
I know that's why I've come, and that's what I need to do. Like that reluctance, I thought was the one human element in this CGI hellscape that I can latch onto. Is like, I've been in that boat. I know how that feels. I can empathize.
Yeah. So if you want to actually go to the kind of the crux of the actual memories of Gray, as we were talking about the ship. Now the ship.
Okay, let's talk
what's going on with it. What's going on with the ship? Right? So they're on a generational starship.
Yeah.
First of all, the thing that struck me more than anything else was we're introduced to the previous Trill host, which apparently is not the Admiral. Which I thought, whoa, a minute, whoa. Okay, what's going on here? So the Admiral theoretically sent the message 12 years ago.
Yeah.
They must have died in the meantime, and obviously the first discussion is, oh, is it going to change you? Is it going to make a difference when they're where Gray's playing the violin or the cello? Yeah. And you go, okay, so obviously it must have been a fairly recent transition, and obviously then we don't have an idea how much time has passed between those, because obviously that seems to kind of grow every time we see a little bit more. We assume it's not like literally within days of it happening, because that would just be absolutely ridiculous. But the generation ship, the meteorite, the idea how did they get back from a generational ship to Earth and become a member of Earth Force in such a short amount of time? It's just explain that. I don't get it. I don't understand why they did it that way again. It makes no sense.
Jim?
This is one of the problems with the show compressing Burnham's time to being 1 year in the future. They want to have it so that Adira and Burnham are having the same year gap.
Okay.
Right? They have a similar joined experience, and that's why Dr. Culber puts them together on the mission. That and Sonequa Martin Green is the main character of this Star Trek show. Yeah. So she has to be there. And she's going to need to, bond with this new character. Because once Burnham accepts this new character, then the entire audience will accept the new character. Because she's essentially the captain of this TV show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So they mentioned that the Admiral Tall left 2 years ago on the generational ship in the last episode. So presumably, because of his age and his age being close to where Coulson is in terms of when Coulson dies, because that's our other physical clue. It looks like he died of old age, and it was passed on to the next Gray. It was passed on to the next viable host after it was taken with the acceptance, which is a new concept that's presented in Discovery. The idea of the symbiote accepting you and having autonomy is a new development. It's a new wrinkle in the lore. So presumably that happens because they find Adira a year later in an escape pod, and they bring her back to Earth with no memory of who she is.
Okay.
So presumably joining Earth Force is kind of like joining the military, where it's maybe 3-month training program.
Yeah. And
you can get a uniform.
And
we'll never told her rank.
But this is the thing about it as well, is the idea. Sorry, Jason, I kept interrupting you. The idea that we've got they must have got back from this generational ship to get back. Where's the dilithium for it? This is surely the idea. Now you've hampered the idea of warp travel. So you're kind of saying, right, either they literally got outside of they're chugging by Mars and part of Mars falls off and knocks it, and we better just nip back to Earth to go and fill the holes in, or how it's just like you've hampered yourself by restricting space travel, but having a character go away and come back within the space of a year.
Yeah,
it just seems odd.
And you both were bothered by the deflector dish.
Oh yeah, come on, fundamental part of Star Trek. Come on.
You know what? I have not been on AIDS bandwagon. Like these last 4 episodes, AIDS like we have we got the transporter technology. Are they going to do something with that? And I've been like, It's fine.
Yeah.
We saw it in Nemesis. We saw it in the Patrick Stewart run Star Trek production. I'm willing to go that has become mainlined in the interim centuries.
But a meteorite crash is one step too far, huh?
Well, the thing is okay. So even classic Trek, the reason why those are the deflector dish is it's not even it has nothing to do with the shields. It has to do with the deflectors, which are slowly pushing away any sort of space debris.
Yeah.
So if something was to strike the ship, like physically hit the ship,
Yep.
that has to be damaged. And if that's damaged, there's going to be alarms. There's going to be sirens. There's going to be a commotion. And the way it's presented is they're having this lovely, beautiful scene that I was all on board for. I love the actors. I have a Mike Pence problem with this fly in the room. I thought it was really great. And then we see the giant rock, which is just plot. Like the hand of fate is the hand of narrative is moving. We have to kill Gray to move the plot. And it's just this giant rock flying towards you. And my Trekkie brain goes, no, that's not right. I have been told about these deflector dishes my entire life. I know what they're supposed to do. Why aren't they doing this thing in the future when I'm going at sublight speed? Because they weren't traveling at warp.
Right.
They're going at sublight. Like that should be that's a tractor beam. Like that's a tractor beam catch. Like you're telling me that in addition to warp drive dying, I don't have my deflector dishes. I don't have tractor beams. Like I need you to explain like how a giant rock can just sneak up on the last hope of finding the Federation.
They will never.
Sorry, go on.
Never. They will never explain it. Go ahead, Abe.
They're not going to.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I know it's totally pedantic and it's totally small-minded, but it happened, and my brain just cannot accept it.
Yeah.
But it hits the ship with no warning. There's no red alert. All of a sudden, just meteorite, bang! You go, what? What's going on there? They could have made it a lot more dramatic. They could have had alarms. They could have ship disappear. They could have had it like trying to get to the escape pods, and then the actual, the Grey dying in before they hit the escape pods, and then explain how she got back to Earth. That would be quite good. But no, it just kind of like, meteorite, bang, I'm dead. It just seems to be weird,
like a Titanic thing, right? Almost, right? Where like the ship hits an iceberg or whatever, and then they have to like run for the escape pods and. Yeah,
and maybe she gets maybe he gets trampled in the corridor chase. Like I don't know. I just didn't like it.
All of that would have taken more time than the 2 minutes that they devoted to this scene, right? Which there's just so much compressed into every episode.
Yeah, that's always been Discovery's problem. There's a lot. Like when you sit down for Discovery, it's like sitting down for like a 55-minute Star Trek feast.
Yeah.
They do seem to always kind of try to overstuff episodes with what they're trying to do.
All right, so
and again, I don't want any of my nitpicking, pedantic bullshit, Trekkie nonsense, which I fully acknowledge is happening. Is anything to do with what was presented in the scene? Because I thought it was all lovely, beautifully acted. I want more of them in a room together. I want to know more about Gray. I want to know more about Tall. I want to know more about Adira. I think they're really promising new characters. I'm just like that thing happened, and if I didn't see the rock in the reflection, if it just happened, I wouldn't have a problem. This pedantic Trekkie thing would not be happening in my brain right now.
Yeah. So the B plot, Saru, dinner. The sphere data, which is starting to turn into the voice from Calypso. Jim called this last week. I had not. I thought it was a stretch personally, but I was wrong. And we're starting to get the voice of the ship. It's interesting because we often talk about in science fiction in general, science fiction television, whether it's Star Trek or Firefly or Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon. We talk about the ship as a character. But the ship has no voice. It's a character, maybe, if the writers do it right, but it's a character that speaks maybe through other people, like the way that Kaylee the mechanic would always refer to Serenity as a she and would even say she needs X or she needs Y, right? And we're like, okay, that's like her kind of being the voice of the ship. But now, we're really getting we're taking the idea of the ship as a character we're cranking that up to 11 now. So the ship is actually getting a voice, a permanent voice that we know is going to still be with the ship because we've seen it 1,000 years further in the future. And Saru takes this incredibly in stride, which was weird. Like, shouldn't he be worried about the sphere data suddenly materializing an identity? But he seems okay with it, and I guess we are supposed to be too.
I'm okay with Saru being okay with it.
Okay.
And here's why. No one, like, if anyone else, like, if it was Pike saying, "Oh, I think this is a good idea," if it was anyone else not interrogating it, and here's why: the sphere triggered a biological, triggered the what was it called?
The fear thing, the fear reaction.
Yeah, well, like his evolution. It triggered Saru's evolution. Who knows how they were communicating, like metaphysically? Like the idea that the sphere data has a personification in the computer banks, and Saru's okay, and is like, okay, I'm going to take your advice.
Yeah, yeah.
And not only that, like, I'm going to take your first advice, which blows up in my face, kind of.
Right.
And I'm still going to take your secondary advice after that.
Yeah.
Because I got a little bit of headway with Killian Stamets.
Abe?
Yeah, it does seem a little bit odd that it was easily dismissed as like, oh, just run a diagnostic. Oh, nothing's fine. Okay, carry on then. That seemed a little bit of like, surely you must be worried about something taking control of your only ship. We can't call the Federation spare parts people to come and fit something new if something goes wrong. So we have to. This is it. But I'm interested to see if the ship as it is going to become a new character. Are we actually going to see them asking questions of the sphere intelligence, kind of like Aurak in Blake 7, where it was like, oh, this is a computer that knows everything. Okay, but if it does, the sphere knows everything. The sphere has the knowledge of a gazillion years in it. Just, if we want to solve a time travel problem, there you go. Sphere can do it probably. Snap of fingers, job done. There you go. We can just fly around the sun. Oh, okay, right, we've solved it then. So there is that potential.
Jim?
Well, I think the sphere data knows about the Guardian and the Edge of Forever. That's how I think they're going to do the time travel thing, is they're going to walk through a doorway and discover the ship has to sit there and go there the long way around until they come out of that doorway.
Oh, if they do Guardian, I'll be chuffed to bits, but yeah.
I'm putting all my ducats on this one.
I can tell. You guys are going to go bankrupt on this, but whatever.
This is the problem, because I say many of the times where we've before this, we've come up with in-universe explanations for stuff that would work. Oh well, obviously it's going to be this. Obviously the Ferengi are going to be involved, and they ignore that. So they have literally a doorway to wherever they want to go to. Yes. On a planet somewhere where they can jump to using a spore drive that can travel anywhere in the galaxy, but they will do it a different way, and it's a real shame, I think.
And the only reason Trek has not revisited the Guardian at the Edge of Forever was not a contractual reason. CBS owns it outright. It was out of respect to Hall and Ellison, and because they didn't want Hall and Ellison bitching about them. That man is now passed.
Yeah.
And I don't think New Trek is beholden to sort of the dictates of Borman era, Roddenberry era reboot Trek.
And they published a comic book with the extended version of it, didn't they, at one point as well? So yeah.
I loved the dinner scene. Detmer is rapidly becoming one of my favorite characters on the show. I loved her admission that pilots have to be macho, but I still am not figured out exactly what's wrong with her. Like, is it supposed to? This episode suggested her problem was entirely psychological, but it started when she hit her head on the console.
Yeah,
and I still think that it's some kind of biological, technological problem with her implant. And these episodes are confusing me, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be confused or not. I feel like it's badly argued rather than a mystery. I don't know.
I think I've made the supposition that maybe Control is inside the implant.
Oh yeah.
And then they showed previously they're on, like right before she takes the head fall, she literally shouts, "I lost control."
Okay.
And that's when she jumps out. The back of my head is going like, I don't want it to be Control. I want Control to be done with.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure the show wants to be done with that plot.
Interesting. What about the rest of the dinner scene, the haiku competition and all of that? No thoughts?
I think as you go back to Detmer, I think her fundamental thing is the loss of the cyborg character that died obviously to Control.
Oh.
I think that might be the kind of thing. And again, now we're looking over at the new co-pilot every episode, and it's not that character. So It's like every day she's reminded that she's gone, and I'm hoping that. I mean, again, we haven't name checked her since, so it would be nice to actually name check that character and say this is what the problem is.
It's the same actress, but it's a different character.
Yes, right? Yeah.
I just when Saru comes to the bridge in the last episode on People of Earth, he refers to her by name, Lieutenant Nielsen.
Okay, Nielsen.
Yeah.
So. You remember that last week I suggested that being the captain of the Discovery was like being the Dark Arts at Hogwarts. I think that we should use Lieutenant Nielsen as the precedent here. And if Saru dies at the end of season 3, Doug Jones should get recast as a human and walk onto the set in season 4 as if he'd always been there.
I love that. I would support that.
Yeah.
Because like Doug Jones, like he's always playing these prosthetic characters. But he has such a wonderful face. Like his genuine expressions when he's talking out of makeup. It's just so engaging that like no science fiction show has done that.
Yeah.
Or science fiction property. Like, we got Doug Jones. Oh, we're gonna cover him up in like layers. He's gonna be the Silver Surfer. Like
So a lot of the whole B plot revolved around the Doctor and Stamets and their relationship with Tilly and Detmer. It seems to be working towards a positive conclusion by the end. They are literally embracing each other by the end of the episode. Thoughts on it? Like it?
See. I watched another YouTube video yesterday when they reviewed this, and
always a bad idea.
Let's just say they are not fans of Discovery. Okay, let's just say that they will rip into everything they've seen. They hate everything. It's all terrible. One thing I will agree with them on though is the characters no longer have a effective chain of command in the same way that Next Generation had. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would not see the idea of Troy running up to Picard and giving him a nice hug and saying, "Oh, you're okay." And now whether or not that's because they are literally trapped in the future on their own, so they have no one else to rely on but themselves. Yeah. But whether or not that's actually going to play into the idea, I mean, we're almost, like I said before, when we start this off, we're going into Voyager territory, but Voyager managed to maintain that chain of command. They always had Janeway in the thing, and you have a bit of argy-bargy with some other characters, but generally speaking, captains was right. But when you start getting Tilly kind of directly addressing the captain, and say, "Oh, you did a great job," it's like that would not happen in another Trek show. I agree. Weird.
I think it feels more like a family.
Yes.
Of atmosphere, right? Like we're kind of, and I think you're right. I think it's because they're stuck in the far future. They've unmilitarized.
But also the idea that they are trying to bring back the Federation and technically Starfleet as well. It's like if you're abandoning those principles as well, where you say we have a chain of command. What happens when Saru wants to do something the other people don't? Do they just have an argument about it? I don't know what's gonna happen. And if we are right when the time travel stuff happening, then it's going to just break down. Everyone's going to be shouting at each other like the dinner table. That's what it's going to be. Some people are going to want to do it, some people not. Slang match between a lot of them. Where's it going to end?
Jim?
So funnily enough, I was having a conversation about this yesterday with our mutual friend Bree.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about sort of like how Trek responds to egalitarianism versus dictatorship.
Okay.
Like Kirk holds briefings, right? Like
Yeah.
the briefings happen, but he doesn't hold them like Picard. He literally tells on the bridge of his ship, he's like, "This is not a democracy."
Right.
That's a quote that Kirk has.
Yeah.
Like it's a very forward-leading enterprise, forgive the pun. Whereas Picard, the moment he stubs his toe, he's like, "Let's have a meeting." In the first few seasons of TNG.
Yeah.
Like, and it breaks down. Wolf goes, "I think we should kill it." Everyone kind of side-eye him, but they sort of like they're able to flesh out their characters that way. But still, Picard is the leader of the show. Everyone has deference to Picard.
Yeah. And
as the show moves away from Roddenberry, it gets a little less egalitarian, to the point where you get Deep Space Nine, and the captain is God metaphor becomes literally text when Sisko evolves to godhood at the end of that show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's continued on in Janeway. And I think this series is really trying to figure out what is Star Trek outside of the, like, because Picard has that line, like, Starfleet is more than just the military.
Right.
He has that sort of line, but he's wearing the rank of captain. He has the deference of a naval captain. I think this show is trying to explore, like, the family dynamics you mentioned, because last season it was all about the servant leader Captain Pike. Like, he was going to inspire people to lead, not by doing it, not by example, but just by encouragement. And now we have Saru, who's in the middle of the family dynamic. Some people he's known all the way back to the Sinjo with Detmore and Burnham. And you can't really lead once you, like, if you're friends with someone, you can't be their boss the next day. Like, it's going to be a difficult dynamic transition.
I think this is inevitable considering the show's decision to decenter the captain from the very beginning. Like the fact that Burnham is not the captain, but Burnham is the star of the show. And once you do that, then that means the captain is no longer the most important character, and it just kind of tips the whole power structure over, right? And it's interesting because I've done a lot of role playing in Star Trek environments, and different groups approach it differently. Some people really want that military structure. Star Trek appeals to a lot of vets and a lot of people with military experience because they get into that whole Starfleet mentality, and they like the organizational structure. And like, you've got officers and you've got enlisted, and people give orders and you do what you're told. But that always sort of struck me weird because Star Trek, I don't know, it never struck me as being particularly militaristic, I guess, unless I was watching one of the war episodes in DS9 or something. It was always more like, well, the captain gets everybody's opinions and then they give instruction and everyone obeys it. But that's because the captain is basically almost always right. I mean, except for the plot points where he's wrong and the whole show is about him being wrong, right? We almost always get kind of perfect captains here, and they're really, really good at taking everybody's points of view and coming up with a reasonable strategy, and everybody kind of has consensus. Like the captain has a consensus from the crew. Here, it's a different mechanic. It's like Ada's saying, like they've got nothing. They've been catapulted 1,000 years in the future. They're kind of performing their duties out of rote. Like they're doing their job out of habit. Like, well, what else are we going to do? Like we don't know anybody. Everybody we knew is 1,000 years dead. The Federation's gone. We can't take a shuttlecraft and just leave like that. I'm going to go do my job at the science desk or the engineering station because what the fuck else am I going to do? And I find that very interesting. This show has done a lot. It's gone in a lot of directions I would not have gone. In many ways, we're not getting the season I thought we were going to get. And those of you that have been listening, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were describing this as a sort of post-apocalyptic Mad Max style Star Trek. Well, that idea really, quite frankly, is not what this season seems to be about. We're not rebuilding the Federation out of nothing. There are scraps of the Federation everywhere. And we're not like grabbing individual characters like our communications chief from the first episode and rebuilding Star Trek, the Federation, out of that one guy and that one station, like that's not now Starfleet headquarters, right? And instead, we're on this sort of Battlestar Galactica style quest where we're traveling all over the galaxy, picking up breadcrumbs and kind of exploring new places every episode. I guess it's a Planet of the Week.
So the militaristic kind of breakdown as it is now. I don't know if it's kind of like a general response to like anti-authoritarianism in general society. Well, we don't want to see stories about this and never. I mean, we've got the fun Batman stories going on because we don't want to see rich people be superheroes. We've got a fun Iron Man super story going on because we don't want to see exactly the same thing. DS9 had a good reason for it because half the characters weren't Starfleet officers, so you could have that kind of argy-bargy between the two lots of characters. Yeah. Voyager had a similar thing as well, but Voyager managed to integrate those people. There were still disagreements. These are still supposed to all be Starfleet officers. If anyone, like I mentioned before, if anyone should be stirring up trouble, it should be Giorgio. And she just basically just likes to make snide remarks, and that's it. That's as far as she goes. She's not trying to like, this is my chance to take over the future, rub your hands together. She's almost more kind of like dedicated to the idea of the Federation than some of the other characters. Since coming over from another dimension, it just seems, well, that's okay, but I don't know.
Jim?
So I've got, I think JoJo is moving up. Like, whole alignment has changed.
Yeah.
Like, now she's like chaotic neutral
instead of chaotic evil.
Instead of like lawful evil, she's made that jump to where she's enjoyed the pleasures of this new sort of Vulcan universe that she's exploring.
Yes.
And I kind of think she's sort of taking it that way. So like when she's sitting there with Linus at the movie theater, I'm like, are they hinting at like a JoJo-Linus relationship?
Right.
Like, I'm kind of on board for this.
Kind of on board for that. Well, we have been going up about an hour. So, any last thoughts on this episode? Theories about what's coming up? We have shots of apparently Starfleet headquarters, which is our next destination.
Yeah, go, Jim. You go first.
Oh, no, you by all means.
I was going to say, right, so as you mentioned before, the idea we were in a post-apocalyptic world, universe, as it were. The problem we have with this is we have a spore drive that can jump anywhere.
Yeah.
So the idea is like, oh my God, we've got to find stuff at headquarters. Okay, tap some buttons, we're there. It just seems that we haven't got that kind of striving thing. Like I said, like Battlestar Galactica, where you're trying to find the last remnants of the society. You literally just got to program it in, they go there. And it's, I can't see why. I'm not sure what planet we're going to next. Obviously, we'll start at headquarters. But the idea we're not going to Vulcan, which would be my first port of call after Earth, would be like, okay, well, the Vulcans obviously know what's Federation going on. That seems, so whether that's Reunification 3, obviously, is going to be Vulcan's visit. But it just seems to be a lot of that kind of, oh my God, where are we? How are we going to solve this problem? It's taken away purely by the existence of the spore drive. And I think that's a bit of a shame.
So I think the season that you want, Jason, it's going to be a half season.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to be the second half of this season. And here's why I say it. Okay. There was a line that Caldwell says in the medical log to bring this all full circle that people keep saying when we find the Federation, right? Yeah. When we find the Federation, it's going to be better. It's not going to be better when we find the Federation. It's going to be much, much worse.
Okay.
And I'm putting money down that we're going to encounter those parasitic beings we saw in the episode of Conspiracy in TNG season 1.
Now, this was a famous subplot that we kind of either ignored or just kind of wrapped up off screen, right? Like it was going to be a big major Starfleet headquarters. Starfleet Command has all been infiltrated by these alien bugs.
Yep.
And then we just ignored it.
Yeah. Well, what happened was it's the only... Yeah. In season 1, it's the only plot that shows up twice.
Okay.
Because it shows up in the episode when they're interrogating the whole crew about like is Picard on the level?
Okay.
And that JAG officer shows up and is doing the interviews.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, the Admiral goes, "There's something weird going in Starfleet Command." And a few episodes later, something weird's happening with that Admiral in Starfleet Command.
Yeah.
And the very end of the episode, the aliens tell Picard, like, we are patient. We can wait. And this thing scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Like, when I was like a 7-year-old, like the Enterprise flies away and you don't hear the triumphant flying away music. You hear the little beeps of the Morse code of the alien transmission and the promise that they're going to come back.
Okay.
And the reason why I think we're doing that is because David Cronenberg, Body Horror himself, is hired to be in some sort of authoritarian role because we see him touching a computer screen. So I think the idea is we're hanging our hopes on this is going to be the Federation. We're going to meet the Federation. They're going to give us a busy assignment. We're going to realize it's not the Federation, and we're going to have to show them who we are by Burnham's line of, we are actually the Federation, and now we get the season that you want, Jason. We're going to start building from episode 6 as opposed to start building from episode 2.
Yeah, Conspiracy was, as far as I know, was the only episode of Next Generation that was edited in the UK. We didn't see the head exploding scene in the UK when he got phasered at the end of it. That was
graphic.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre. I've seen it since. Yeah, again, we have real world Trek in universe explanations for cool stuff they could do. Are they going to do it? I don't know. I don't know. I also don't understand why, if they're trying to tie the Federation together with a ship that can jump anywhere, why they haven't also decided to start distributing the lithium or supplies to people or whatever to make their lives better, which would be a very Federation thing to do, rather than allowing them to still to rely on the couriers that are corrupt as anything. So I can't see. That's another thing. I mean, I know it will be kind of like the idea of, is your dilithium governor, £5 put on the, but the idea that would be somewhere with a ship that can literally travel anywhere, it just seems like, well, why has that not been, no one spoke about that. No one said, well, there must be thousands of people out there or millions of people out there that need our supplies or need help. Why don't we do something about it? So whether or not that's something that comes along with the Federation talk, I don't know.
Well, we will find out next week. And my favorite supporting cast member from The Mummy is also showing up next week.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that's right. He is in there.
Yeah. What's the actor's name? I forget.
Who's that?
Oh, I don't remember.
He's the guy that plays like the Bedouin leader in the Mummy series. He's an Arab actor. He shows up in Starfleet next week. Anyway, I forget the character's name, but we will come back. We are one week closer to either the worst time travel reset in the history of science and television, or I'm gonna make you guys eat crow.
Yeah, because I'm all down for the crow. Because I don't want it to happen. Like, that's the thing is, I don't want the time travel resolution because I feel like that's how Voyager ends. Voyager ends by Janeway going back in time, going, I don't like this, and changing it. And I don't think that's morally right.
One of our audience members, Don, helped us out. Oded Fair is the actor's name.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
He played in The Mummy. And Don, we're all in this together. We will be back. We will be back next week with the next. Do we have a title? Next episode?
Oh, I'm sure we do. I haven't looked it up.
We will be back to meet the Federation. Thanks, everyone. See you then.